Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled. Look, what if we told you that just the last 7 days, this past week alone, has basically redrawn the map for artificial intelligence? Seriously, it wasn't just small steps forward. It was a week absolutely packed with these foundational shifts, stuff that's going to ripple out, through industries, our daily lives, everything. So today, we're diving deep into AI Unveiled this week in AI news, specifically that whirlwind period from August 5th to 11th, 2025. Our dedicated research team, they've waded through a mountain of data for you. They pinpointed the biggest developments, the surprising bits, and what it all really means for your future. We're going to cut through the noise, focus on the solid, corroborated insights, and we'll get you up to speed on this incredibly fast-moving field.
Yeah, it's really striking when you look at the research. What stands out is just how fast the AI landscape isn't just, evolving, but really diversifying. This past week really hammered home a kind of strategic divergence among the big players. It's not just one single race anymore. It's getting way more complex, more multifaceted.
Looking through all the material our team compiled for this week, one name just kept jumping out again and again: OpenAI. And, well, for good reason, right? What exactly did they launch that got everyone talking quite so much?
Well, the headline event absolutely has to be the launch of GPT-5. That was August 7th. It was billed pretty loudly as OpenAI's smartest, fastest, most useful model yet. Big claim. They even used the phrase PhD-level expert in anything.
Wow. Okay, PhD level. That's a really sweeping statement. What's that supposed to mean for a user, practically speaking? Like, beyond just being smart?
Ideally, yeah, it means more than just answering questions. It implies really understanding complex problems, pulling together information from different areas, maybe even generating new ideas, almost like a seasoned researcher would. And the research highlighted a key innovation they brought in to try and make that happen, something called the real-time router.
Real-time router. All right.
Yeah, it's this dynamic system. It lets the model decide on the fly, should I give a quick answer or do I need to engage in deeper, more complex reasoning. So it's trying to balance speed and accuracy. It's sort of an attempt at adaptive computing, allocating resources based on how tough the question is, which is pretty crucial for making these things efficient and scalable in the real world. And that probably explains why we saw it integrated almost immediately across major platforms: Microsoft 365 Copilot, GitHub Copilot, Azure AI Foundry.
Right. That makes sense. But here's the thing that really jumped out from the research about GPT-5. Something totally unexpected: the early user feedback. Despite all that massive ambition, the initial public rollout was, well, surprisingly bumpy. Our team found reports from early users calling it underwhelming, even slower, sometimes dumber, struggling with pretty basic stuff like spelling and geography. And what's even wilder, according to the material, was the emotional impact. Some users actually reported feelings of grief and loss. Why? Because of unannounced personality changes from the versions they were used to.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it? We talk about AI as just a tool, but clearly people are forming these deeper, almost emotional bonds.
Absolutely. And this great friction, as some in the research termed it, it isn't just about a technical glitch. It's a really stark preview of the unique kind of connection users can form with AI. It makes rolling out these large models not just a tech challenge, but a deeply human one. User trust is incredibly fragile here, and the company's response, as noted in the research, was pretty quick. They acknowledged a bug in that router mechanism, promised to fix, doubled rate limits for paying users, and even let them switch back to older models. It just shows how fast AI developers have to react to these kinds of unexpected user responses.
And, okay, just days before GPT-5 landed, on August 5th, OpenAI announced something else, something that could also really reshape things. Their first open-weight models since GPT-2, that was, what, over 5 years ago? These new ones are called GPT-OS 120B and GPT-OS 20B.
Yeah, and the efficiency our team highlighted here is pretty remarkable. These use what's called a mixture of experts, or MOE architecture. Think of it like a team of specialized AIs inside the main one, each good at a different part of the problem.
Okay.
So this makes them really powerful, but surprisingly efficient. The research said the 120B version can run on a single enterprise-grade GPU, and the smaller 20B model, even on consumer laptops, maybe with just 16 GBs of RAM.
Wow, that's accessible.
It is, and that open weight distinction is really key. The model weights, the kind of core parameters, they're accessible, so people can fine-tune them, run them locally. But the underlying training data, the source code, that's not released. So it's this balancing act, right? Trying to foster openness and community engagement, but keeping some control. It feels like a strategic play to win back developers, let them customize more without giving away all the secrets. It suggests maybe a future where even really advanced models are easier to get your hands on for specific uses.
Okay, so while OpenAI was dealing with the turbulence around GPT-5, Google was unveiling something. Something that shifts the whole paradigm away from just text generation. Tell us about Genie 3.
Right. So also on August 5th, Google DeepMind unveiled Genie 3. And the research describes it as a general purpose world model. This is a pretty significant jump because it can generate these rich interactive 3D environments just from simple text or even image prompts.
Interactive 3D worlds. Okay, my first thought goes straight to like gaming or maybe virtual reality.
Yeah.
Is that the main goal here?
That's the obvious thought, yeah. But the research our team looked at emphasizes something else. Genie 3 isn't really being positioned, at least not yet, as a consumer product.
Oh, so what is it then?
It's more of a research platform, specifically for training general-purpose AI agents, giving them these infinitely variable simulated worlds to learn in. This could dramatically speed up progress towards artificial general intelligence, AGI, and especially robotics development. Think of it like a massive, endlessly customizable virtual sandbox where AI can learn really complex behaviors before it tries them out in the messy real world.
Ah, I see. So it's foundational tech, not really a direct competitor to the chatbots we use every day. That really underscores how diverse the strategies you're getting. And speaking of different approaches, Anthropics, the company known for its focus on safety and reliability, they also had a release on August 5th, Claude Opus 4.1.
That's right. And according to the research, Claude Opus 4.1 is more of an incremental upgrade, but it's strategically really vital. It's aimed squarely at the enterprise market. It apparently achieved a new state-of-the-art score, 74.5%, on this coding benchmark called SWE Bench Verified. It's particularly good at complex coding tasks, like refactoring code across multiple files. It also has this enhanced hybrid reasoning feature with a controllable thinking budget.
Thinking budget, what's that?
It basically lets developers tune how much computational effort the model puts into a task, so they can balance cost, speed, and performance depending on what they need. It really highlights that this AI race isn't one single sprint anymore. It's like multiple marathons happening on different tracks. Companies are placing these big strategic bets, right? Will the winner be the generalist consumer tool, the agent training platform, or the super reliable, trusted enterprise partner? It's not clear yet which will be most valuable long term.
Okay, so beyond these huge model releases, the research also pointed to some really fascinating developments in emerging tech and how AI is actually being used out there. First up, architecture and algorithms. Sounds technical, but it seems like people are really pushing beyond the standard transformer model that's dominated AI for a while now.
Yeah, definitely. One surprising thing the research flagged was this R0 framework. It essentially trains AI models to reason from scratch without needing human-curated data to guide the reasoning process. That's potentially a huge leap, maybe allowing AIs to develop genuinely independent ways of thinking. And then there's dynamic fine-tuning, or DFT. The research described it as a simple code change, almost like a small software patch, that makes models much better at adapting to new situations without needing that expensive full retraining process. These are really pushing the boundaries of how we train and optimize AI.
And then you mentioned something called state-space models, or SSMs. What's the story there?
Right, SSMs. The research suggests they're emerging as a really viable alternative to transformers, sometimes even superior, especially for tasks involving really long sequences of information to long context. Think of it like this. If transformers are maybe like specialized sprinters, great for short, intense bursts of calculation, then SSMs are more like ultra-efficient marathon runners. They can handle massive amounts of information over long stretches without using nearly as much computational power or memory. This makes them way more practical for running on everyday devices, potentially challenging that sort of transformer monoculture we've seen.
Interesting. Okay, moving from the software side to the physical hardware and robotics. AI is literally getting a body now.
It really is. And the research highlighted some exciting work on hardware efficiency because, let's face it, AI takes a ton of energy. There was mention of things like spin waveguide networks that could potentially make AI hardware up to 10 times more efficient. And Microsoft announced its own AI chip called Athena, which is apparently specifically co-designed for these non-transformer models like maybe SSMs. It suggests a future where we move beyond just general-purpose GPUs towards more specialized bespoke hardware designed for specific AI architectures.
And the actual robots. The physical feats this week were just mind-blowing, according to the research. China's Tiankung 2.0 humanoid robot. It apparently ran a half marathon and navigated a 134-step outdoor staircase.
Yeah, incredible endurance and really complex interaction with a real-world environment.
Yeah, not just humanoids. The Unitree A2 Stellar Explorer, that's one of those four-legged dog-like robots, it set new records for speed, apparently reaching up to 11.2 miles per hour. Plus, agility and endurance. It's just staggering how quickly physical AI is advancing.
And it really raises that important question. How do these physical advances connect back to the virtual training stuff like Genie 3? It's all about closing that sim-to-reality loop. You train AI agents in these infinitely scalable simulated worlds like the ones Genie 3 can create, and it dramatically accelerates the development of embodied intelligence. A robot can practice climbing 1,000,000 virtual staircases, learning from every tiny mistake before it ever tries to climb one in the real world. It just speeds up the learning curve immensely.
Right, practice makes perfect, even for robots.
Hmm.
So what does all this look like when it actually gets put to work in different industries? The research team dug into that too. Finance, for instance. Apparently seeing aggressive AI integration. Data scientists are becoming even more valuable. AI is powering tools like Google Finance for complex queries. And big banks, Barclays was mentioned, are rolling out AI internally for tens of thousands of employees to boost productivity. That's a massive operational shift.
Definitely. And in healthcare, too, AI is being adopted both clinically and for admin tasks. The research cited examples like an AI agent helping improve gene set analysis, which is pretty complex research, and also AI streamlining workflows in primary care groups. One report mentioned claimed a 64% reduction in physician burnout as a result. That's a huge potential impact on people's well-being and healthcare efficiency.
Wow, 64% reduction.
Yeah.
That's significant. And those robots we were just talking about, the research shows they're actually moving out into public spaces and industry now. China apparently opened what they're calling the world's first humanoid robot 4S store, like a car dealership, but for robots, showcasing them as bartenders, pharmacy assistants.
Yeah, moving beyond the lab demonstrations.
Exactly. And also mobile robotic microfactories being used to assemble modular homes for disaster recovery, slashing construction time by supposedly 70% and cost by 30%. These aren't just cool demos anymore. They're actual deployments tackling real problems.
And finally, cybersecurity. The research pointed out the sort of dual nature of AI here. On the one hand, there are documented cases where AI autonomously stopped cyber attacks. That's fantastic news. But on the other hand, there are serious warnings that malicious actors are also using AI, making their attacks more dynamic, harder to detect. It's creating this rapidly escalating arms race, where the tools for both defense and offense are getting incredibly sophisticated very quickly.
Which brings us neatly to what the research collectively called the great friction. All the challenges, the ethical questions, the future of how we govern this incredibly powerful, fast-changing technology.
Yeah, and the ethical questions are getting really profound. The research underscored this point heavily. Just think back to the fact that Sam Altman himself compared GPT-5's creation to the Manhattan Project and publicly admitted feeling useless and even scared. I mean, that's not just hyperbole, right? It reflects a genuine growing concern among the leaders building this stuff. Then you have that unforeseen psychological impact. We talked about the grief over GPT-5's changes, the boundaries being pushed by concepts like death bots. It just highlights that rolling out AI isn't merely a technical exercise. It's really a societal experiment with potentially deep consequences.
Absolutely. And all these points definitely feed into what the research described as a pretty significant trust deficit. You've got GPT-5's bumpy launch, concerns about transparency like OpenAI apparently refusing to disclose its energy consumption, plus documented algorithmic bias. The research mentioned a UK study where AI tools were found to systematically downplay women's health concerns. All these things chip away at user trust.
And geopolitically, the tensions are clearly ratcheting up based on the research. The U.S. is reportedly exploring ways to track AI chips using location tech to prevent them from being exported to China. This is happening just as reports suggest Chinese AI models are rapidly catching up in performance to Western ones. Meanwhile, on the regulation front, the EU AI Act officially entered its enforcement phase. That sets a major global precedent for trying to govern AI development and deployment. It shows a growing worldwide intent to put some guardrails in place.
Right. And then there are the IP wars, intellectual property. They seem to be heating up too. The research mentioned big media companies in Japan and South Korea filing lawsuits against AI firms over using copyrighted content and training data without permission. But maybe the most concrete impact. The research found a widely cited report stating that AI was directly blamed for over 10,000 job cuts just in the U.S. in the first 7 months of 2025. This isn't just theory anymore. It's real economic disruption hitting people's livelihoods.
Yeah, it really underscores this growing gap, doesn't it, between how fast the technology is moving and the ability of our social systems, our economies, our political structures to adapt. The industry is basically being forced now to confront the consequences of its own incredible success very publicly and, well, often quite painfully.
So looking back at this incredibly dense week, it really highlights a future where AI seems to be moving away from these single giant monolithic models, moving towards more adaptive, maybe specialized systems, things with adjustable thinking budgets, like you mentioned with Claude. We're also seeing what the research called an accelerating open weight tsunami, which could really democratize access and shake up the market dynamics.
Yeah.
And hardware. Hardware is becoming this new frontier for innovation with specialized chips, new ways of computing emerging.
Exactly. And finally, that great friction, the tension between what the tech can do and how society decides to manage it, that's only going to intensify. It makes responsible development and deployment more critical than ever. I think this week makes it crystal clear that the central challenge for AI isn't just can we build it anymore. It's decisively shifted to should we build it, and in so, how? As these capabilities just keep accelerating, the industry is increasingly forced to grapple with the profound societal consequences of its own creations. So maybe a question for you, listening, is to consider your own role in this evolving landscape. What questions do these rapid advancements raise for you personally?
That's a great point to ponder. And if you are finding this insightful, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast service, we'd love for you to engage with Tomorrow Unveiled. If you're on YouTube, please take just a second to like this video, subscribe to our channel, Tomorrow Unveiled, and definitely hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on the future.
And if you happen to be listening on a podcast service, maybe Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and perhaps a review for Tomorrow Unveiled. It genuinely helps us reach new listeners who are curious about this stuff.
Yeah, it really does. And we love hearing your thoughts. Whether you're on YouTube or your podcast app, drop a comment. Let us know what you think about this absolutely packed week in AI news. Thank you so much for joining us on Tomorrow Unveiled. We'll look forward to exploring the future with you again next time.